Hello again, Eric Olson, KSMQ Public Television, with this On Cue special edition during the COVID-19 pandemic. We're talking to friends and neighbors in the region, getting their views on what's going on in their communities. We've been talking, as you know, to county health department folks, government folks, political science experts. Today, it's from the newspaper. We're going to get the whole story now from Fillmore County in the region. Jason Sethre, the publisher of Fillmore County Journal, which is located in Preston, joins me now. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
Real good. And I want to talk about newspaper business generally because you're a busy person. See your paper, and I don't know how you and your staff do it. You cover everything. How's it going with COVID-19? Has it just from your residents, your readers, and from the numbers, it looks like there aren't all that many cases. It's been kind of like the other counties in the area.
Yeah, we've had really low numbers with COVID-19 as far as number of cases. We have 13 as of today. I just checked. We have 13 in Fillmore County. It was hovering at 12 for quite a long time. We also cover Houston County, and Houston County has only had one case. It's interesting in rural Minnesota, like where Fillmore County and Houston County are located. Numbers are really low. I was just looking at the map for the state of Minnesota, and there's 16 out of 87 counties that have no cases at this point that have been identified. So Fillmore County, we've had 13. We did have one death. Somebody actually the death happened. They're from Fillmore County. They were in a congregative living center in Rochester, Olmsted County, and so that was one that occurred. But other than that, our numbers have been really low.
And just from my pedestrian view, I mean, would it be because one of the reasons might be the rural nature of your area and people are apart just to begin with?
Yeah, and I've looked at the numbers. When you look at some of the bigger population centers, of course, the number of people per square mile is quite a bit greater. In Minnesota, the average number of people per square mile is about 94 for the state of Minnesota. In Fillmore County, it's 25 people per square mile. In Houston County, it's 33 people per square mile. I do think those numbers play a role in it. We've got, by the nature of our geography, people are spread apart out in the country. There's some people that live a mile to 2 or more miles away from their neighbors, and right now you see a lot of tractors on the roads, a lot of activity in the fields, and so the farmers are busy. People are busy doing what they normally would be doing to a certain degree, just with limited access to some of the businesses that would normally be open. So that's probably been the biggest impact in our area, is that we have a ton of businesses that people can't utilize the same way. And it's, I would say that there's more, from what I hear, there's more concern for the economic impact in our area than the impact of the pandemic, because our numbers are so low. People are concerned about the businesses being able to stay in business, and that's been a concern.
Well, how do you as the publisher balance that? Must be quite a task you want to inform people. Some folks, that's how they get their news, is from the county journal, and yet give them some hope, give them positive information, and also tell them about these business concerns that you just mentioned.
It is a balancing act from a news standpoint. Every day, and it seems like almost every hour of every day, we have stuff coming at us as far as what stories we should be telling. That can change every single week. We have so many stories to tell. I mean, I think we got to find a balancing act between providing stories relating to what's happening and how it's impacting our area and individuals with the COVID-19, but also try to find some sense of normalcy, because I think people are really looking for that too. If all they're hearing every single day is related to the pandemic, that it can be a little bit wearing, I think, emotionally on people. So we need to find some sense of normal too.
We've heard a lot about businesses suffering. There's been a lot uh, said about, go to your restaurant, order takeout if you can. How about the newspaper business? I'm assuming that some of your customers are saying, I'm sorry, I can't put an ad in this time.
Yeah, you know, I would say any media company is impacted by this, because we are essentially a reflection of the local economy, and if the local economy is struggling, the newspaper, radio, any media outlets that normally would be running ads, like for example, auctioneers, uh, they've you can't have their events. Of course, restaurants, a lot of anything that's event related or involves bringing people together that's been put on hold will have a ripple effect, and of course we are affected by that as well. The one thing that's been interesting is how a lot of these businesses have been changing how they do business, and we just had an auctioneer ad come in this morning, and the auctioneer is switching, has never done it before ever, has switched over to trying to provide online auctions. And so, there's some things happening that businesses are trying to make it work. It's just going to be very different going forward, because they have never had to think this way. It's businesses always worked fine in the past, but they're going to have to do things different.
I'm speaking with Jason Sethre, publisher of the Fillmore County Journal in Preston. And Jason, we were talking off camera about even sports coverage. When there's no sports happening, you can't put anything in the paper.
Yeah, and actually, right away when sports came to a halt, I remember we were going up to the state tournament. Our Fillmore Central girls basketball team went to state. It was a Thursday. We were lucky enough to go for that first game, and it was that Thursday. All of a sudden, we found out the state tournament was going to be canceled after that. So the next day, everything the dominoes started falling, and everything got canceled from then on out. And so we put our sports coverage on hold for about 2 weeks, and then the sports director and I met and said, let's talk about what we can do from now until, say, the regular spring sports season would be done. And he had always wanted to do a piece about the top players of the decade per sport in our area. So he started writing a feature on that. And interestingly, every week we run the top players, the top 20 in basketball, boys basketball, top 20 in girls basketball, top 20 in football. And then what we did is we did get sponsors for an athlete of the decade. So the top player, and it's interesting, sports is one of those debatable things. One person might say that, this athlete over here is the one that should have been number one. So it's been, at least, even though we don't have the sports taking place, it's been something for people to look at and relate to, because it brings up all these names of these athletes that 10 years later now they're getting recognized for what they did. So it's been good. It's been good for the community. At least if we don't have the sports taking place, we have something in there for those who do love sports. So again, that's one of those adaptations that we didn't see coming, but we figured the public would love it, and they do.
Talk a little bit about the newspaper business, especially in a small community. We're in Austin, the western part of our viewing area. Newspapers are struggling. The locals have cut back to 2 days a week now publishing. A lot of them want you to go online, and then there's some in the technology world that says the newspaper, the print version, that's dead. It's going away. From where you sit, what's the strength or weakness of a print publication going forward?
Well, I think that a lot of the newspapers that are having their challenges operate quite a bit different than our newspaper. For example, our newspaper is distributed free to every single household, so people don't have to pay to subscribe. So all of the advertising is what supports making that possible. So everybody in Fillmore County receives our newspaper. And even into Olmsted, we have Chatfield overlapping into Olmsted and Fillmore County. Everybody in the Chatfield area receives it. Grand Meadow, 100% of the households. Leroy, Spring Grove, Eitzen, a portion of Caledonia, and then all of the Houston zip code over Houston County. So we're putting out almost 18,000 newspapers every single week. Everybody receives the news. We cover 16 city councils, 8 school boards, county government. We're putting so much into the paper, and it's all local. Local news every single week. A few years ago, I wrote an editorial, and I just went through one week's newspaper, and I counted all the names of everybody in the paper, from obituaries to the police reports, the entire paper. And as I went through, I counted up 843 faces and names in one issue of the paper. And so I think as long as newspapers focus on local content, because when you go to your mailbox and you pull the newspaper out and you recognize people on the paper, you're going to have a connection. And I think that's where some newspapers have struggled, because they're filling their paper with wire content. And we don't put any wire in our paper. We don't have space. We have too much local news that we're reporting on. We don't have space for that. So to me, local is where it's at. And I think if newspapers can stick to that, that helps. But I also think the distribution model is an important part of it too. One of the challenges that you have with subscription-based newspapers is that when people move into a community and they're a transplant, they move into that community, they don't know anybody there. They don't maybe have kids in school, and so they don't have a connection with the community. I see a free distribution model is the way to go. And I've been in the business for 26 years, and I've worked at daily newspapers and weekly newspapers. And when you can guarantee the delivery of the product to everybody, it just makes sense as a business model for newspapers.
Well, that's great. Hey, Jason, thank you very much for taking time of your very busy schedule to chat with us. Interesting to hear your views.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
You bet. Jason Sethre, publisher of the Fillmore County Journal in Preston. That'll do it for us right now. Till next time, I'm Eric Olson, KSMQ Public Television.